So I'm going to start reading from the book. And like I say, everybody has frustrations. That's one of the biggest things we're not taught to understand since we're little children, because we're always tested. And everybody gets frustrated. So it's just like yesterday's stimulation when I was talking about it in the morning and at night. We all get stimulated, and one of the things is frustration. Nobody likes frustration because it shuts you down, it disempowers you. Have a wonderful day, Mish. So I'm just going to read the book and I'll take a break. Cindy can come in and then I'll carry on reading. And maybe when I'm done, if anybody wants to express or share anything, you can. But I'm going to just read and try to get this book finished. This afternoon, me and Cindy will go and vote. We shall rejoice indeed, said Lantos, turning towards us, when you are again ready to join in the conscientious service of the glorious works at hand. This opportunity comes through the mighty victories you have won over the human self and outer world. The time is nearing when you shall be privileged to see how truly great those victories are. Each day, except in its fullness, the mighty active presence of the great God within you, and there can exist no such thing as failures anywhere along the path. Everyone who sincerely seeks the light is always known to the Ascended Masters. On New Year's Eve, we will meet here again when there will be 12 guests from Venus. It is our wish that you be present. Saint Germain and Amen Bey will be your sponsors. At a signal, all became silent and received Lanto's blessing of love before returning to their respective fields of service. Most of them simply disappeared from the room within a few moments. The rest left by the way of the tube. My children, I see you are unaware of time. It is now 3 o'clock in the morning, remarked Saint Germain, as he turned to say goodbye to Lantos and our son, who after embracing me left by way of the outer reception room as we passed through the first doors on the right. There is one thing more, he continued, I want you to see before we go. Here is a group of most unusual musical instruments that are used for a special purpose being constructed or created so as to have a tone of special qualities for work we do. Here he turned to an organ keyboard and went on explaining. It seems to be a pipeless organ, but the pipes, which are much smaller than ordinary, are placed within the case. The tone of the whole instrument is superior to anything on the earth has ever known before in music. These organs will come into use in the outer works as the incoming golden age moves forwards. Next, we examine 4 magnificent harps slightly larger than those in ordinary use in the musical world today. Saint Germain seated himself at one of these and played several chords to give me some idea of their tone. It was the most wonderful sound I had ever heard. This harp is a surprise for our beloved Lotus, he said, for on New Year's Eve in this retreat you shall hear the organ and 4 harps played by skilled artists. We finished the inspection of the room and left through the door on the northwest wall. Instead of passing out of the retreat as we had come in, Saint Germain opened a small door on the left and entered a glistening tunnel whose walls sparkled with the crystal-like formations which became instantly illumined by the white light that he has always released by manipulating the electrons substance about him. We walked rapidly forwards into the tunnel, came to the bronze door that opened at his touch, and stood again under the starlight sky. We remained in perfect silence for the instant, then raising to come 500 feet above the ground level, passed swiftly through the air. A few moments later, stood beside me, physical body, on the southern slope of Mount Shasta, where the panther still guarded. I had been away 24 hours, and as I looked up, dawn was just creeping over the eastern horizon. "Here's your breakfast," announced Saint Germain as he handed me the crystal cup containing a clear, white, sparkling liquid. "This is both strengthening and refreshing, so you will enjoy hiking home because your body needs the exertion and activity. I sense something in your mind which is not at ease, or at least is not clear to your consciousness." "Yes," I replied. "I have a question that has been holding my attention for some time. It is concerning visualization. That is true visualization, what happens when one does visualize." "True visualization," he answers, "is God's attribute and power of sight acting in the mind of man. When one consciously pictures in the mind a desire he wishes fulfilled, he is using one of the most powerful means of bringing it into his visible, tangible experience. There is much focus and there is much confusion and uncertainty in the mind of many concerning what actually happens when one visualizes or makes a mental picture of something he desires. No form ever came into existence anywhere in the universe unless someone had consciously held a picture of that form in his thoughts, for every thought contains a picture of the idea within it. Even an abstract thought has a picture of some kind, or at least a picture that is one mental concept of it. I will give you an exercise by which one may develop consciously control and direct his visual activities for definite accomplishment. There are several steps to the process which every student can use at any and all times. The practice does bring visible, tangible results when really applied. The first step is to determine upon a definite plan or desire to be fulfilled. In this, see it is constructive, honorable, and worthy of your time and effort. Be sure to examine your motives for bringing such a creation into expression. It must be honest both towards yourself and the rest of the world, not merely to follow a whim of gratifying appetite of the physical senses. Remember, there is a vast difference between use, desire, and appetite. Use is the fulfilling of the great universal law of service. Desire is the expanding activity of God through the manifestation is constantly sustained in his perfection enlarging itself. Appetite is but a habit established by the continued gratification or feeling nature, and is but energy focused and qualified by suggestion from the outer activity of life. Be very sure that there is no lurking feelings within you that you would be glad to benefit an expense of another. So it's like taking things from people is seeing what is theirs and wanting it. So whatever you're doing to gratify yourself is taking from people and trying to create or block them or interfere with what is theirs, and it's not right. A real student, and only such a one, will get the benefits out of this kind of training, takes the reins into his own hand, and determines the discipline and consciously control the human self. He chooses what shall or shall not be in the world, and through the process of picturing within his mind, designs and brings into manifestation a definitely determined plan of life. The second step is to state your plan in words as concise and clear as possible. Write it down. Thus, You make a record of your desire in the outer visible, tangible world. Third step is to close the eyes and see within your mind the mental pictures of your desire or plan in its finished, perfect condition and activity. Contemplate the fact that your ability to create and see the picture within your own consciousness is God's attribute of sight acting in you. The activity of seeing and the power to create are attributes of your God self, which you know and feel within you at all times. God's life and power are acting within your conscious to propel into your outer world the pictures you are seeing and feeling within yourself. Keep reminding the intellect that the ability to picture is the attribute of God, the attribute of sight. The power to feel, experience, and associate with the perfected picture is God's power. The substance used in the world without too much the forms in your picture, the plan is God's pure substance. Then you must know God is the doer, the doing, and the deed. So every constructive form and action that ever has been sent forth into the world of manifestation, when you thus use all the constructive processes, it is impossible for your plan not to come into the visible world. Read your desire or plan over as many times in a day as possible, and always just before retiring, because on going to sleep immediately after contemplating the picture in your own mind, a full expression is left upon the human consciousness, undisturbed for a number of hours, enabling you to be recorded deeply in the outer activity, allowing the force to be generated and accumulated, which propels it into the outer experience life. In this way, you can carry any desire or picture into your consciousness as it enters the great silence in sleep. There it becomes charged with God's greatest power and activity, which is always within the heart of the great silence. Under no circumstance discuss either your desire or the facts you are visualizing with anyone whatsoever. It is imperative. Do not talk to yourself about it out loud or even in a whisper, for you should realize that the greater the accumulation of energy generated by your visualization, contemplation, and feelings and reality of your picture, the quicker will come into your outer experience. Thousands of desires, ambitions, and ideals would have manifested into the outer experience of individuals if they had not discussed them with friends or acquaintances. When you decide to definitely bring about an experience through consciously directed visualization, you become the law of God, the law of the One, and to whom there is no opposition. You must make your own decisions and stand back of your own decree with all your power. It means you must take an unshakable, determined stand. To do so, know and feel that it is God's desiring, God's feeling, God's knowing, God's manifestation, and God controlling everything concerning it. It is the law of the one God and God only. Until it is fully understood, you cannot and never will get your manifestation, for the moment a human element enters, you are taking it out of God's hands, and of course it cannot express because you are neutralizing it by the human qualities of time, space, place, and 1,001 other imaginary conditions which God knows nothing about. This is where we're like, well, how am I going to do this? And we try to figure out a way that we can manifest it, we can create it. You know, when you want to pay bills, you start figuring, well, how can I create that? What can I really put my energy into creating? Instead of just getting God to solve this problem and give you a way to pay all your bills. But our minds like to jump around and do this. No one can ever know God as long as he considers a force opposed to God, for whenever he acknowledges the two forces can act, he has a resultant quality of neutralizing activity. When you have neutralized, you have no definite quality either way. You merely have nothing or no thing in your manifestations. When you acknowledge God, the one, you have only perfection manifesting instantly, for there is nothing to oppose or neutralize it, no element of time. So it is established unto you, for there is none to oppose what God decrees. Conditions can never improve for anyone until he desires perfection and stops acknowledging a power opposed to God, or there is something either in or outside of him that can prevent God's perfection from expressing. One's very acknowledgement of a condition that is less than all of God is his deliberate choice of an imperfection, and that kind of choice is the fall of man. There is deliberate and intentional because he is free every moment to think whatever he chooses to think. Incidentally, it takes no more energy to think a thought or a picture of perfection than it does one of imperfection. And that's where people always get stuck, because they always want to look at what won't work, what won't happen, and they all want to decide how things are. So that's what you create. So nothing ever manifests. You are the creator, localized to design and create perfection in your world and place it in the universe. If perfection and dominion are to be expressed, you must know and acknowledge only the law of the One. The One exists and controls completely everywhere in the universe. You are the self-consciousness of life and one supreme presence of the great flame of love and light. You alone are the chooser and decreer of the qualities and the forms you wish to your life into. For you are the only energizer of your world and all it contains. When you think or feel, parts of your life energy goes forth to sustain your creation. Cast out of mind then all doubts or fears of the fulfillment of that which you are picturing. Should any such thoughts and feelings, which are after all but human emanations, thoughts and feelings that do not contain perfection, come to your conscious instantly, replace them by the full acknowledgement of yourself and world as the life of God, the One. Further then, be completely unconcerned about it except during the time you are visualizing. Have no set time in your mind for results except to know there is only now, just the immediate moment. Take this discipline, use it, and you can manifest a restless power into action that cannot and never did fail. Always remember you are God's picturing. You are God's picturing. You are God's intelligent directing. You are God's power propelling. It is God, your substance, being acted upon. As you realize this and contemplate the fullness of it, often everything in the universe rushes to fulfill your desire, your command, your picture, for it is all constructive and therefore agrees with the original divine, the divine plan for self-conscious life. If the human side of us really agrees to the divine plan and accepts it, there can be no such thing as delay or failure, for all energy has the inherent quality of perfection within it and rushes to serve its creator. As your desire picture is constructive, you are God seeing his own plan. When God sees it is an irrevocable decree or command to appear now in the creation of the earth and systems of world, God said, "Let there be light," and light appeared. It did not take eons in time to create light. The same mighty God is in you now, and when you see or speak it, it is attributed of sight and speech, which is acting in and through you. If you realize what it truly means, you can command by His full power and authority, for you are His life consciousness, and it is only the self-conscious of your life that can command, picture, or desire a constructive and perfect plan. Every constructive plan is His plan. Therefore, you know God is acting, commanding, let this desire or plan be fulfilled now, and it is done. Here Saint Germain finished speaking, and bidding me a smile goodbye, for the time being disappeared from my sight. I turned my footsteps towards home, and the panther trotted close by my side. He had been fully 24 hours without food, and it was not long until he dashed off through the woods and disappeared in the heavy timber. I continued on my way and arrived home at 11 o'clock, spending the rest of the day trying to realize the full import of what I had been privileged to experience, and how to enter concepts of my world had changed so unexpectedly. And like I say, he revealed lots and lots of stuff when he took him into these places. Like there's lots of abundance, there's all kinds of things there for mankind, but in our minds we don't have an understanding of that. And everybody always says, oh yeah, energy is like this and like that, and you know, there's no time, no space. Say all kinds of things. But inside they don't understand it. They don't understand their gifts, they don't understand their abilities. And like we just find different ways. It's like I can give you flour and you can make bread, and I make cinnamon buns. Somebody else takes the flour and makes pie. And you have the recipe for really good bread. I have a recipe really good cinnamon buns. They have a really good recipe for making pies. But they see it from their version. And they're always creating beautiful pies. And you look at it, you're like, no, 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 you need to make bread. Or I look at it and I'm like, to both of you, I'm like, no, 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 you need to make cinnamon buns. But you always see how you make beautiful bread. So you create from your version, and we have the ingredients of energy to do that. And I just use the version of flour. And if you're going to understand bakers, they take flour and they turn it into all kinds of stuff. God gives you the flour. What are you going to create with it? And if I'm a chef, then I'm going to turn it into all kinds of stuff. But each one of us creates what we feel and believe is good for us. A lot of us are undeserving. A lot of us believe we got to suffer right from the time we're born till we leave this planet. And we got to live in poverty. And we got to be surrounded in chaos. And we have to heal and save everybody that comes into our lifetimes. And we just stay stuck. Because that's what we're doing with the energy. And no matter what, God gives us all of this flour, we just keep transforming it. Once we make it, because somebody shows up in my life and they need cinnamon buns, well, I'm going to make cinnamon buns and give it to them. Somebody else shows up in my life and they need a loaf of bread, well, I'm going to take it and I'm going to make a loaf of bread and I'm going to give it to them. Somebody else comes along and wants dumplings, well, I'm making dumplings and I'm giving it to them. But I never have anything for myself. And we do this with energy. God, day and night, is giving us energy. But what is your belief and why are you giving it all away? Does that really make you a good person? Or it's just causing you grief, sadness, heaviness, all kinds of other things? And look at all the people that are coming with their hands out. Why aren't they taking something and giving to you? Why are they not respecting you? Why are they not honoring what you're teaching? Why are they not growing with everything you're sharing? Look at your brothers, your sisters, your mother. Do they lift you up or do they bring you down? Do they trap you? Look at all of your friends. Why do you have all of these people in your life? Have they deceived you? Have they hurt you? Have they wronged you? Do you got to go back and try to fix something that's not yours? Do you got to go on carrying everybody's dysfunction from your childhood? Do you got to keep on attracting all kinds of things into your life, trying to fix it, trying to be a mechanic or a doctor or whatever it is you believe? This is something I had to sit with a long time in my life, and I had to go, I deserve good things. I don't deserve to be treated that way anymore. I deserve to be happy. And somewhere I'm going to create that happiness, whether the world likes it or not. I don't have to justify it to nobody. And I can be honest in whatever way it is I need to be honest as part of my healing inside, whether anybody understands it or not. And I can look in the mirror and see if I'm beautiful or not. Because a lot of times in life, we don't think we're beautiful. We hate ourselves. We always find something wrong with ourselves. Women do that. They stare in the mirror for hours and hours and hours looking for something to hate. Why? Lots of men are always jealous, envious of other guys, other women, other this, other that. And they hate themselves. Now, if you hate yourself, how can you have anything good? How can you wake up and smile and go through life every day? What about your culture? What about your grandparents? What were you ashamed of? And you decide you want to change that. You want to invite something better. And it's like, I don't have to prove I'm native. I don't have to discuss things with people. I spent my life looking at these things. I know how it is to be pushed out. One time me and Cindy walked into a bank. She was with me. And I banked at that bank for quite a while. And I had a check. And I went up to the front desk and the woman treated me really bad and rude. And I had to take out all my IDs and everything. And this woman deposited my check every time I went to this bank. And she would always ask me for all my IDs and everything, and she would check if it was my bank account or not. And I'm like, you don't do that to anybody else that walks in this bank. And finally I put it in, I took a few dollars, and me and her were walking out of the bank, and she was so mad at the way the woman treated me. I'm like, that happens all the time. Ever since I was young and I first got my paycheck and I went to the bank to deposit, they've always treated me bad because I'm native. And they say natives are criminals or bums or this and that. It's not a truth. And a lot of natives are dysfunctional because of residential school and what the governments did to them. But if you give native knowledge and heal them in that, they're really, really amazing people. And like I say, everywhere I've gone in life, I've been looked down and treated bad. Even when I get invited to places where they say they're healers and energy workers and that, they do all kinds of things and they try to treat me bad. And I'm like, I just carry on doing what I'm doing. I don't worry about it. Like I say, it's everybody else's. I know I deserve good things. And when I get to a certain point, I'm not allowing anybody in my life that will frustrate me or look down on me or try to make me feel bad or guilty or anything. I said for years now, I'm going to close a door. Once that door is closed, none of that's coming into my life again. And I will do everything I'm meant to do on this planet, whether people like it or not. And everybody has their version of who I am. But every day I'm a new person. I'm not anything in the past. And every day you deserve respect and good things. Don't matter what your culture is. Don't matter what kind of mistakes you made. You work really, really hard to heal and move forwards and learn. Nobody has a right to tell you you're less than you choose to be. And everybody's deserving of good. So this next one is Mysteries of the Yellowstone. 7 days passed. It was then the first week in September. On the evening of the 8th day, I sat contemplating life and its infinite expressions. When my thoughts turned naturally to Saint Germain, immediately an overwhelming love went out to him in deep gratitude for all I had been privileged to experience through his assistance and light. A feeling as if the presence in the room began to come over me like a breath, and looking up suddenly, there he stood smiling and radiant, the very presence of divinity. "My son," he said, "am I so unexpected a visitor that I surprise you? Surely you know quite well that when thinking of me, you are in contact with me, and when I think of you, I am with you. In meditation, your attention was upon me, and so I appeared. Is that not according to the law? Then why not accept it as natural? What one thinks upon, he draws unto himself. Allow me to suggest that you train yourself never to be surprised, disappointed, or your feelings hurt under any circumstance, for perfect self-control of all the forces within you at all times is dominion, and that is the reward for those who tread the pathway of light and correction of the human self." That's why I say you gotta have and correction of the human self. That's why I say you gotta have power over this holographic machine, not chemicals. And everybody that's, oh, I'm an empath and all that, you're destroying. And you got to stop all that. Everybody has it. Remember always that the right to demand what is dominion is only permanently retained by those who have first learned to obey, because he who has learned obedience to the law of one becomes a being of cause only, and that cause love. Thus, in reality, becomes the law of one through the qualities of similarity. Watch so nothing goes from you that which is harmonious, and do not allow a destructive word to pass your lips, even in jest. Remember, you deal with a force of some kind, very instant of eternity. You are its qualifier at all times. I have come to take you on an important journey. We will be gone 36 hours. Draw the curtains to your room, lock the doors, and leave your body in bed. It will be guarded until our return. You have made certain inner advancements, and a very interesting, delightful experience and journey are ahead of you. I prepared my body for bed and soon became very still. A moment later I stood up upon the floor outside my body, clothed in the same golden garment I had worn on my visit to the great royal Teton. The sense of density one has about the walls was gone, and as I passed through them, the feeling was that which one experienced when walking through a heavy fog. This time I was clearly conscious of passing through space. I did not ask where we were going, but it was not long until we came to the Royal Teton. Towards the east stood the towering Rockies, and beyond them stretched vast plains that will one day be teeming with semi-tropical vegetation, and its people living in peace and abundance. To the west I could see the Sierra and Cascade Mountains, and still further to the Coast Range, whose shores lined is all but to be changed. Northward we looked down upon Yellowstone, whose marvelous, beautiful veils of ancient mysteries and wonders from our present American civilization. The word Yellowstone, explains Saint Germain, has been brought down through the centuries for more than 14,000 years. At the time, the civilization of Poseidus had reached a very high point of attainment, because the great master of light was at the head of the government. It was only during the last 500 years that the decline took place, and the misuse of her great wisdom held sway within the present boundaries of the Yellowstone, which are still the same, exists the richest gold mine the world has ever known. It belongs to the government, and much of its wealth was used for experimental and research purpose in chemistry, inventions, and science. 37 miles from this place was located a diamond mine. The stones taken from it were the most beautiful yellow diamonds that had ever been found within the earth before or since that period. Among the gems which came from that mine were a few rare stones of very remarkable beauty and perfection. If properly cut, they showed a tiny blue flame at the center that looked like liquid light. When worn by certain individuals, the radiance from this flame could be seen more than an inch above the surface of the stone. These were held sacred and only used in the highest, most secret rites of the Ascended Masters. 16 of them are still held in sacred trust by the Brotherhood of the Royal Teton, and will again be brought into use at an appointed time. It was because of these magnificent yellow diamonds that the present name Yellowstone has come down to us. You, my son, were the discoverer of both mines. I will reveal the records that are the physical evidence of what I have just been telling you. These records give the dates of their discovery, amount of wealth taken out, length of time operated, descriptions, and machinery used, which handled refractory ore, recovering 87% of their value, running of it into bullion, while yet in the mine making unnecessary any operations at the surface were shipped, and the date of closing and sealing. Here are the duplicate records. In the life of Postonus, you lived in the beautiful home with the sister who is now Lantos. Both attained and maintained close contact with the inner God self. So God was truly in action at all times. You were official in the Bureau of Mines, and through this connection invented and built a wonderful airship. In it you traveled a great deal over the mountains. One day, while in deep meditation, you were shown the location of these mines, which you later discovered opened up and turned over to the government. With this explanation, I will now show you the proof of what I have described, although there is not a trace of these mines on the surface today. Come, we will enter the mine itself. Leaving the Royal Teton, I was perfectly conscious of passing through space and moving rapidly until we reached a certain spot in Yellowstone Park. Here we descended and stood before a wall of solid rock. Do you see any way to enter? Said Saint Germain, turning to me. No, but I feel the opening is here, I answered. As I pointed to a certain spot on the granite wall, he smiled, and going up to the place indicated, laid his hand upon it, and in a moment we stood before the metal door, unsealed. You see, he explained, we have our own method of sealing any entrance we choose for protection. It is impossible for it ever to be found or entered unless we so desire. The substance with which we hermetically seal places and things is drawn from the universe. It is harder than rock itself, though in appearance exactly like it. In this way, we are able to protect entrances to retreats, buildings, buried cities, mines, and secret chambers of the great Ascended Brotherhood of Light, many of which have been held in a state of perfection, preservation, for over 70,000 years. When we no longer have use for such a place or thing, we return them back to the universe. So you see, all power becomes the willing servicer of the one who has conquered himself. All forces of the universe are waiting our command whenever it is a part of wisdom and love to use them. On the door we faced was a replica of a man's right hand raised in the metal itself at about the level of my shoulder. It looked strikingly like my present physical hand. Place your hand over the metal one, said Saint Germain, and press hard. I obeyed. It fitted over the other perfectly. I pressed with all of my strength. Slowly the great door opened, and he continued. You have retained that form and size of hand for several embodiments. It was placed on the door by the government as an honor because you were the discoverer of the mind. That hand is a model of your hand 14,000 years ago. We entered through this door and passed into a long, round tunnel, finally emerging into a great cavity. There, to my utter amazement, I found tools and machinery of various kinds, made of an imperishable white metal, in as perfect a state of preservation as it, if constructed but yesterday. In the center of the cavity was a shaft. Our present mining engineers would be amazed at the simplicity and perfection of the mining activities of that former age. The same method will again be brought forth into use here in America within the next century. Saint Germain stepped to the shaft and pulled a lever. Soon a cage of particular design came to the top. We stepped inside. He touched a smaller lever within. As we began moving downwards towards the 200-foot level, we came to a station. Continuing on down to 700 feet level, we stopped. This was the central station, and from it led 5 tunnels like spokes of a wheel. I'll see how much I can get rid here. These were all perfectly round and lined with the same light metal of which the machinery was constructed. It was so thick and strong that only the collapse of the mountain itself could crush it. 2 of the 5 tunnels were driven into the mountain for more than 2,000 feet. In the central station was one engine that handled all the cars. The white metal you see, explained Saint Germain, is a most remarkable discovery, for it is light in weight, tougher than anything known, untarnishable and imperishable. You might only give a fragmentary description of all of these marvels that are actually physical proof of the great heights of this ancient civilization. Such wonders have existed and are now in the midst, undreamed of until this revelation shall go forth. As we came to the end of the tunnel, he showed me that the drills that had been used in the distant day, these drills, he continued, sent forth a tube of blue-white flames about an inch in diameter. They operated at an amazing speed, consuming the rock as they passed through. We returned to the station and entered the triangular-shaped room between 2 tunnels. At the far end were containers made of the same white metal. They were about 12 inches square and about 3 feet in length. Saint Germain opened one and showed me the wonderful uncut yellow diamonds. I was speechless. They were so beautiful. I think I hear my reader say, "Do you mean to tell me that these were physical?" To that perfectly natural question, I wish to answer yes, just as physical as the diamonds you wear on your fingers today. Other containers were filled with cut diamonds of fabulous value. We then returned to the entrance of the mine. Saint Germain closed the door and sealed it as before. No one, not an Ascended Master, could have distinguished it from the surrounding rocks. Raising from the ground, we quickly covered 37 miles to the gold mine. This time we stood on a very top of the mountain near a cone-shaped rock that looked perfectly solid. It was about 15 feet in diameter at the base and perhaps 10 feet in height. "Watch closely," he said. As he laid his hand against it, slowly a triangular-shaped section moved out, disclosing a flight of steps leading downwards. We descended these stairs for some distance and soon came to the cavity at the top of the shaft, similar to the one in the diamond mine. "You will notice the absence of crushers," he continued. "Everything is done within the mine itself. Not a thing is handled at the surface." We stopped at the 4-foot level, where there was another immense cavity. Here complete equipment for treating the ore was located. He explained the extreme simplicity of the process used, which seemed incredible. It was so simple. He continued on down the 800-foot level and saw the same arrangement as in the diamond mine. Here again were tunnels going out from the central point, like the spokes of a wheel. 3 triangular-shaped rooms had been built between these tunnels, containing the remaining output from the mine just before it had been closed. The same white metal containers were here as in the other rooms. Only 3 of them am I allowed to describe. The first receptacle contained nuggets from an ancient riverbed in the placer formations at the 800-foot level, in which the gravel had been slightly cemented together, holding the gold. This condition existed for a depth of 1,200 feet and held immense value. The second container was filled with wire gold from a white quartz vein at the 400-foot level. Another held solid gold discs weighing 8 pounds each. The place in which they stored all the gold, he explained, is known as a bullion room. There have been duplicate records kept of this mine, the originals being in the second room at the retreat of the Royal Teton, and duplicates here. We returned to the surface. Again, Saint Germain sealed the entrance as described, and turning to me again said, "My son, you discovered these mines and, assisted by your colleagues, put them into operation and brought about this perfection. You also made the records on the imperishable metal, which I will show you in the Royal Teton." The Ascended Master saw the cataclysms of 12,000 years ago was approaching, and knowing the mines would not be much affected, had them prepared by sealed for use in the far distant ages into which we have now entered. At 7 different periods of your many embodiments and memories and process for making these records has been recalled. You will bring them forth again in the present age of the blessings of all mankind. This accounts for your feelings since childhood of interest in ancient records of all kinds, and that you would have much to do with such work again in this lifetime. Come, we will now return to the Royal Teton. There, in a room adjoining the great audience hall, are these records to which I have referred. It is a place for preservation and invention. For preservation and inventions of scientifically discovered. The one we were in on our former visit contained only records of various civilizations. We returned to the retreat and entered this time by way of the tube, as on our first visit. Stepping out, we passed through the second door to the right of the entrance. It opened directly into a scientific room, a space about 70 or 40 by 50 feet. The entire walls, ceilings, and floors were lined with some imperishable white metal of which the shelvings and containers were constructed. Saint Germain drew out one of the latter and handed me the records I had made of the diamond mine. Again I was able to read it, but this time he told me to call upon the God Self within, and thus let it reveal the complete former knowledge which I had at that time. The record gave a clear but condensed history of the discovery of the operations. He handed me another spindle, and on it was the complete history of the gold mine. Now that you have seen the physical proof of what I have explained, he said, I want you to know that I will never tell you anything which is not proved. Here he turned towards me with a piercing look in his eyes that passed clear through my mind and body. My son, he continued, you have done well and are calm and poised under these recent experiences. Much depends on your next steps. Focus your entire attention upon the all-controlling God Self within you, and do not forget to hold it there. In the light of what occurred later, it was well he had fortified me with that admission. With that warning, he led the way across a large audience hall to the great bronze door on the west wall. Placing his hand against it, the panel slowly moved upwards until we had entered, and then closed after us. I stopped immovable and amazed, for I looked upon that which human eyes are rarely, if ever, permitted to behold, and the scene held me motionless, so great was the fascination of its beauty and wonder. About 12 feet in front of me stood a block of white snowy onyx, 3 feet high, 16 inches square. On this rested the crystal sphere, filled in ceasingly moving, colorless light, in which were points of radiance darting to and fro. The sphere continually sent forth rays of prismatic colors to a distance of about 6 inches. It seemed made of living substance, so constantly did it oscillate. Out of the top of the crystal ball poured forth 3 plumes of flames, one molten gold, one rose pink, and the other electric blue, extending at least 3 feet in height. Near the top, each section bent over like an ostrich plume, graceful, beautiful, and perpetual motion. The radiance from this gorgeous sphere filled the entire chamber, producing a sensation of electronic energy no words can convey. The light, life, and beauty of that scene simply overwhelmed human powers of description. We stepped towards the far end of the room, and there, side by side, stood 3 crystal caskets, each containing a human body. As I came nearer, my heart almost stopped beating. From within were the forms Lotus, our son, and I had used in an ancient embodiment. I recognized them readily, for Lotus still retained some resemblance to that body, but the bodies of our son and myself had features of greater regularity and perfect physiques. All showed the full perfection of a type almost like that of an ancient Greek. They looked as lifelike as though only sleeping. Each had wavy golden hair and was clothed in garments of a similar golden fabric to that in the robes worn by the figures in the tapestry. An Ascended Master had but to look upon these bodies to see registered every vital action experienced in any physical embodiment since that time. Thus, they acted as mirrors to record passing activities which, however, left their original perfection unchanged. Each casket stood upon a large base made from some kind of white onyx, as that on which the sphere was placed. They were covered by lids of crystal fitted very tightly in a groove around the edge. but were not sealed. On the cover of all three was just over the center of the chest was 7-pointed star. Below it were 4 hieroglyphs at the end, and placed so it would be just over the top of the head was a 6-pointed star. On the side, just beneath the shoulders, were 2 clasps, hands, and further down near the foot was a lighted torch placed so the flame touched the lid of the casket. This flame remained golden, no matter what other colors of light played through the room. At the opposite end of a 5-pointed star under the feet, all the emblems were raised as if embossed upon the crystal. These bodies, explained Saint Germain, belong to you 3 in one particular life. When you left the Golden City to do a special work, your experiences were so terrific, and yet so much good was accomplished in that life, that the great cosmic being appeared and gave the command to preserve them, until such time as you could raise your body and return to the Golden City. He gave full directions for their preservation, which was faithfully carried out, as you see. Now you can all realize how important and necessary it is to keep keenly aware of the deeply centered upon the Master Christ self within, that only God's love, wisdom, and perfection may act through your minds and bodies at all times. At that moment of dazzling light and tremendous power surged through me, and my God's self spoke. Great masters of light, parents, brothers, and friends, O mighty sons of God, thou hast indeed an everlasting love, and through it thou hast attained thy well-deserved eternal peace and mastery over the 5 lower kingdoms. The great God self in these children thou lovest so well shall soon come forth in full consciousness, dominion to give every assistance thou hast so long desired for each of God's children, has a service to perform which none but he may give. I call forth the great light from the ever heart of God to bless you forever. As these words were spoken, a great shaft of light blazed forth, filling the chamber with points of brilliant prismatic light colors. They darted everywhere in the room, and all became a blaze of rainbow lights pulsating with life. See, my son, said Saint Germain, how perfectly you can let the great God self express itself. You shall soon be able to do this consciously and at will whenever you desire. Notice the stalactite effects on the ceiling and the silver white appearance of the walls. They are all made of precipitated substance, and the room is maintained at the same comfortable temperature at all times. We crossed to the far end of the chamber and stood before a polished archway in the wall. Saint Germain placed his hand upon it, and the door closed or opened, disclosing a wonderful white metal equipment for making the records. In the ages we are now entering, he continued, much equipment will be brought into humanity's use that has been preserved, and so will not have to come through the ethers, the avenue of invention or discovery. How is it, I ask, that everything in this retreat and the mind is kept so free from dust and ventilation so good? Is the ventilation so good? That, he explained, is very simple. The Ascended Master used the same forces to cleanse and ventilate by which they produce heat, light, and power. The emanations from any one of them, as they pass through the mines or chambers, instantly consume all unnecessary substance. It is nearing the 2nd morning since leaving your body. We must now return. As we passed through the audience chamber out of the door at the left of the tube and stood once more under the light of the stars, we came back to my room quickly, and in a moment later I was again in my body. Saint Germain stood beside me, holding out a familiar crystal cup filled this time with an amber-colored liquid. I drank it and felt the vivifying effects pass through every cell of my body. Now sleep as long as you can, he said, and disappear from sight. I must have slept soundly, for I awakened many hours later, completely refreshed, my body renewed in strength and power. Next is the Inca memories. The next 10 days passed uneventful through past trainings. I never went to sleep without holding my attention upon the great God self within, and sending a thought of loving gratitude to Saint Germain. On the evening of the 11th day, while retiring, I heard his voice say distinctly, "Come." I have learned to obey that call, and immediately stood outside of my body, passed quickly through space, and in seconds, a few moments, came to the Royal Teton. He stood upon the side awaiting for my arrival. This time he had called me to come to where he was. I obeyed and saluted him. "At your service," I said, stepping to his side and smiling. He was smiling at me, and he replied, "We have work to do. Let us go." I was fully aware of the direction in which we traveled, certain we were going a little west of south. Soon we saw the lights of the city, and Saint Germain, directing my attention to them, remarked, "Los Angeles." After traveling some distance further on, we passed over another lighted section, and this time my inquiry answered, "Mexico City." We then came to a tropical forest and began to descend. Presently we stood upon an old ruins. These are the ruins of the ancient temples of the Mitla, Mitla, in the state of Oaxaca, Mexico. He explained, I don't know if I'm saying it right, Oaxaca, Oaxaca, I don't know, Mexico, he explained. You three came into embodiment to give assistance as the Inca civilization reached its apex. With the approval of the Ascended Masters who were directing your own growth, you chose to come into this Inca family to give the service needed at the time. Here you were born as children of the Inca rulers who were the strong souls of the great growth of illumination. In deep love for people, he called to the one supreme God for light abundance and the perfection to bless them and the land. The Inca's devotion to the source was very great, for he knew and consciously acknowledged the power of the great central sun. This true understanding was taught to the Inca people because they knew to what a great central sun referred, used the sun as a symbol for the Godhead. They had real inner understanding and knowledge, the fullness of the power from the great central sun, which today we call Christ, for it is the heart of the Christ activity in the universe. Because the Inca ruler's devotion to both his source and the people, his deep desire for blessing and the light to guide and help them was granted. And 14 from the Golden City over the Sahara Desert responded to give him assistance. You, Lantos, and your son were 3 of those 14. When you were 10, Lotus 12, and your son 14, all were placed under your care and direction to be prepared and trained for the work you did later. At that time you resided in the Golden City, but after the preliminary attunements had taken place, I came to a palace daily and gave the necessary radiation and instruction. This continued for 4 years before it was revealed to your father. The Inca ruler was amazed at the wisdom of the children and constantly poured out his praise and gratitude to God for thus blessing him. When you were 14, the same great cosmic master who had taken us all to the Golden City at the end of the embodiment of the Sahara civilization, appeared to the Inca and told him his petitions had been granted in a very real manner. It was from this time on, for over 70 years, that the Inca civilization came to its greatest heights. I came daily from the time you were 14, instructed and attuned the Inca ruler, as well as you three. You were referred to as the Inca children from the sun. His gratitude, love, and cooperation were wonderful indeed, and he was taught to understand and use the great cosmic law. Your childhood and youth were wonderful, for no cloud came to mar the beauty of that training. Your son was taught the law of government and the divine duties of the ruler, Lotus the inner work, and given the full laws and consecration of priests in the temple of the sun. You were taught the cosmic law of the priesthood, also secretly the generalship of armies. After 10 years of special training in Peru, all three of you were sent north to one of the new colonies of the Inca Empire for the purpose of helping the people to expand their activities and stimulate their progress. You went forth with all love, honor, and blessings the Inca River knew how to give, and established the capital of the colonies at what is now Milta in the state of Oaxaca, Mexico. Here you built a great temple under the direction of those in the Golden City by whom you have been instructed to help. Lotus called Milta in that life, and it was the honor of her that the city was named. Here she served as a priestess for more than 40 years. It was one of the most magnificent temples of that period, and no expense was spared, for the secret part of it, built below the surface of the earth, was to remain and bear witness to the splendid civilizations centuries later. You knew this at the time it was built, and certain definite orders were given and fulfilled concerning it, because the entire construction was directed by one of the great Ascended Masters from the Golden City. The outer part was made of massive stone, some of which may still be seen today among the ruins. The interior was lined with marble, onyx, and jade. The jade come from a secret source in the Andes Mountains that has never been revealed to anyone. The coloring of the interior decorated work was most artistic and beautiful, the main door schemes being gold, purple, rose, and shell pink. The inner sanctuary was gold with designs in purple and white. The chair in which the priestess officiated was also of gold. Here the spiritual power was focused and maintained, which radiated out to the empires and its people. With these explanations as a preliminary, we will now enter the subterranean temple in which the room has been preserved amidst the ruins of the once great glory. We went some distance further away when Saint Germain commanded, "Stand back." He focused a ray of mighty power on a pile of rocks before us. Suddenly they were thrown in every direction, uncovering a cube of rose-colored granite. He stepped forwards and placed his hand upon it. Slowly it turned, as if on a pivot, revealing an opening about 3 feet wide, with well-defined steps leading downwards. We descended 21 feet to a door that seemed to be made of copper, but Saint Germain said it was a combination of metal alloys so as to make it imperishable. Pressing on the cube of rock at the right of the entrance, a door swung slowly open and admitted us into a small room. At the farther side of the great archway, close by, another massive door. This time he pressed his foot upon a stone of particular design in the floor, and the door moved back, disclosing a chamber of immense proportions that seemed very much in need of cleansing and ventilation. No sooner had the thought entered my mind than the place became filled with a power violet light, followed by a soft white haze, becoming brilliant as the noonday sun. The cleansing was complete, and everything was fresh, clean, and filled with the fragrance of roses. As we entered the great room, my attention was held by a number of the most remarkable portraits I have ever seen. They were etched in solid gold and in colors true to life. These, Saint Germain explained, are also indestructible. 5 of them are the Inca rulers. Lotus, your son, you, myself, all the likeness of the bodies we used at the time. It was only during the Inca period that this particular kind of art has ever been expressed. Through the devotion of Lotus to her own god flame, and that time she attracted a great mastery from Venus, who taught her. That kind of art was different from any known on earth in any age. The master from Venus only allowed a certain number to be made because this particular type of art was centuries ahead of its time, and therefore was not permitted to be used at the period of the world's development. However, it will come forth in the present golden age we have now entered. My son, oh, that the people of America could only understand the tremendous possibilities stand before them, waiting for them to turn away from creed, cult, dogmas, isms, and all else that binds and limits by keeping their attention from the great God presence within their own hearts. Oh, that they might realize what freedom, power, and light await their service, dependent only on their recognition and use of the great loving presence within, breathing through them each moment now, and feel the almighty control it has over all manifestations. Oh, could they only realize that their bodies are temples of the Most High living God, who is ruler of the heavens and earth, that they might know what it means to love that mighty self, talk to it, acknowledge it in all things, and feel the reality of that presence with at least as great a certainty as they do other persons and things. If they could only feel the closeness and reality of the great presence deeply, even for a moment, nothing could ever again stand between them and the same mighty supreme accomplishments as Jesus and other ascended masters have attained. O America, beloved children of light, let this great God presence in its wisdom and power surge through you now, and see how quickly God's kingdom can and will manifest upon the earth. America is the wayshower among the nations, bearing the light that heralds the incoming golden age, regardless of her present condition. That light shall burn forth and consume the shadows that seek to disrupt her ideals and the love of the great God self. We then passed through the door at the right, where we found more imperishable records at the time of the Inca civilization and the important part it played in that cycle. You recall the process of making these records from the memories of your life 14,000 years ago, remarked Saint Germain. They will be transported to the royal Teton together with the portraits, for the secret temple has completely fulfilled its usefulness, is now to be dissolved. So beautiful, glistening beings appeared and removed the portraits and records. When they had finished, we returned to the entrance and walked some distance away. Saint Germain focused his attention for a few moments upon the position of the secret temple and stood very silent. I felt a sudden stillness grip and hold me motionless. There was a great rumbling like an earthquake. In a moment all was over, and the secret temple, which had been the most magnificent creation in its day, collapsed into ruins. I could but gasp at Saint Germain's stupendous power. Truly, the great Ascended Masters are gods. It is no wonder in the mythology of the ancients that their activities have been brought down to us in the guise of myth and fables. They wielded tremendous god powers at all times because they hold with unwavering determination to the great God presence. And hence all power is given unto them, for they are all perfection. When Jesus said, "All things that I have done, ye shall do, and even greater things shall you do," he knew whereof he spoke, continued Saint Germain. He came forth to reveal a conscious dominion and mastery that is possible for every human being to attain and express while still here on earth. He showed the dominion of the Ascended Masters and proved to mankind that it is possible for everyone to so call forth his God self, that he can consciously control all living, all things human. The great Ascended Master of love, light, and perfection, who have guided the growth of humanity on this planet from the beginning, are no figments of anyone's imagination. They are real, visible, tangible, glorious, living, breathing beings with such love, wisdom, and power that the human mind grasps that immensity of it, to work everywhere in the universe with complete freedom and limitless power, to do naturally all the average individual considers supernatural. They are welders of such power and manipulation of such forces as to stagger the imagination of the person in the outer worlds. They are the guardians of the race, as in the world of physical education various grades of teachers are provided to guide in the development of individual growth from childhood to maturity, and then beyond prepare him for special work. So do the Ascended Masters of perfection exist to educate and help the individual that he may grow beyond ordinary human expression. Thus he develops his superhuman attributes until, like the student graduating from college, the one under the care and instruction of the Ascended Masters graduates out of his humanity into full, continuous expression of his divinity. The Ascended Master is an individual who, by self-conscious effort, has generated enough love and power within himself to snap the chains of all human limitations, and so he stands free and worthy to be trusted with the use of forces beyond those of human experience. He feels himself one with the omnipresent God life. Hence all forces and things obey his command, because he is self-conscious being, a free will, controlling all by the manipulation of the light within himself. It is through the radiation or outpouring of this light, which is really his own luminous essence of divine love, that an Ascended Master is able to help those who come under his care and direction. When such an outpouring to a student takes place, his own inner body, and by that I mean his emotions, mental, and causal body, absorb the Master's luminous essence, and the light within them glow and expand like a spark, which one fans into a flame. This luminous essence has within it the highest force in the universe, for it dissolves all discord and establishes perfect balance in all manifestation. The Ascended Master's body is constantly pouring out rays of his light essence upon the discord of earth, dissolving them as the rays of force which we call light and heat from our physical sun dissolves a fog. The radiation they pour out to humanity on earth is consciously drawn energy to which they give quality and again send it out to accomplish a definite result. In this way, they give protection thousands and thousands of times to persons, places, conditions, and things of which mankind is totally oblivious, going on its appointed way, serenely unconscious of its protector and benefactors. In this kind of activity, the Ascended Masters are able to change the bodies they function in like one ordinary changes his clothes, for the cellular structure is always under conscious control. Every atom is obedient to their slightest direction. They are free to use one or more bodies if the work they desire to do requires it, for their ability to assemble or dissolve any atomic body is absolutely unlimited. They are all powerful manifestors of all substance and energy for the forces in nature, which mean the four elements are their willing and obedient servants. These glorious beings who guard and help the evolving human race are called Ascended Masters of love, light, and perfection. They are all the word masters implies because they bring forth the love, wisdom, and power of the God self within. They manifest their mastery over all that is human. Hence, they have ascended into the next expression above the human, which is the superhuman divinity, pure and eternal, all-powerful perfection. The humanity of Earth's frequently, in its ignorance and limitation, presumers to pass judgment upon and express various opinions about Jesus and many others of the ascended hosts. That practice is one of the most binding things it can indulge in, for in such activity the criticism and judgment sent forth in this way simply returns to its generator, and thus mankind is bound more tightly to its self-created suffering and limitations. The activity of the law is that the Ascended Master, having freed himself from human limitations, have become a blazing outpouring of light into which no human thought or discord can possibly enter. This compels all destructive thought creations and feelings to return to its sender and bind him still more closely to the chain of his own creation. If human beings could see their thoughts, feelings, and words go out into the atmosphere upon the ethers, gather and more of their kind and return, they would not only be amazed at what they give birth to, but would scream for deliverance, and if for no other reason than to blot out creation out of mind, they would with full determination face their own divinity and enter into it. Thoughts and feelings are living, pulsating things. The individual who knows that will use his wisdom and control himself accordingly. Jesus is to mankind gaining his experience on this earth as a great God self within every human being is to be the personal or outer self. He revealed the master records to the outer world. He is still a living proof of the individual ability to free himself from all limitations, expressing divinity as was originally intended, for the first condition in which humanity existed was wholly harmonious and free. When some of those individuals who study life and the laws of the universe more deeply than the masses of earth children become aware of the fact that they are ascended masters, they often desire to go to these great ones for instruction. While in many instances this is an unconscious unpreaching of the soul within the great light, yet the personal self little realizes in what relation it stands to those great beings who are wholly divine. There is a way by which an intensely earnest and determined student may make contact with one of them, but that can only be through the activity of enough love and discipline of the personality. If the motives for such contact be for the gratification of curiosity thinking to prove or disprove the Ascended Master. Existence to merely solve a problem or to convince a doubt in the personality, it will never come about. Rest assured of that, for the ascended hosts are never concerned with satisfying the human side of any student. Their entire effort is with the expansion of the God self within so that its power may be released forcefully enough to snap the limitations in the human self that do not give it a perfect vehicle for use in the mental, emotional, and physical world of manifestations. These are the realms of thought, feeling, and action. Human weakness and limitations simply impair the vehicle that should be trained and kept in the best possible condition as an efficient servant for the use of the great inner God self. The human body, with its faculties, is a God temple of energy with the great God presence, provides, and through this outer self, it wishes to express the perfect divine plan or design. If the uncontrolled senses, appetites, and demands of the personality waste the God energy, so the inner presence is not given command of the vehicle, it steadily withdraws the human self, loses the power to manipulate mind and body, and temple collapses into decrepitude and dissolution. We then have the conditions of the world called death. The person who seeks to contact the arisen master in the visible, tangible, living, breathing body without the preparation needed to gradually attune his own outer structure and mind is in the same position a child in kindergarten would be were he to see a college professor and insist on learning ABCs under him. The ascended masters are really great batteries of tremendous power and energy, and whatever touches their radiance becomes highly charged with their light essence, through the same activity that makes a needle kept in contact with a magnet take on its qualities and become a magnet itself. All their help and radiation is forever a free gift of love. This is the reason they never use any of their forces to compel. They don't manipulate. They got no desires to do that. You have to want it. You have to believe in it. And you can't believe you can use it to manipulate and play games because it won't work. The law of love, the law of the universe, and the law of the individual does not permit the ascended master to interfere with free will of the individual except at those periods of cosmic activity in which the cosmic cycle supersedes that of the individual. It is during these times the ascended masters may give more than ordinary assistance. The earth has entered such a cycle now, and the greatest outpouring of the light the earth has ever known is being and will continue to be shed upon humanity to purify it and reestablish the order and love that is imperative for the future maintenance of our planet and the system of worlds to which we belong. All that does not or will not come into the actions of order, balance, peace, must of necessity pass into some other schoolroom of the universe and work out its own understandings of the law in some other way than is to be the expression of the future life upon the earth. And that's where a lot of people are reincarnating other planets and worlds and other places to finish what they didn't want to do in this lifetime. There is only one passport into the presence of the great ones, and that is enough love poured out to one's own God self, and to them unite with the determination to root out human all discord and selfishness. When an individual becomes determined enough to serve only the constructive plan of life, he disciplines perfectly his human nature, no matter how unpleasant the task. Then he will automatically draw to himself the attention of an ascended master who will take note of his struggles and pour out courage, strength, and love, sustaining him until he maintains permanent contact with his inner God self. The Ascended Master knows and sees all concerning the student, for he reads clearly the record which the student has made in his own aura. And that's where they just look at your aura and they know everything. You can't fool them. This reveals the state of the disciple's development, his strength as well as his weakness. The Ascended Master is the all-knowing mind and the all-seeing eye of God. For him nothing can be hidden. The one who wishes to come into the visible, tangible presence of the ascended host should understand that unless he makes himself a radiating sun of love, light, and perfection, which the Master can expand and use as a part of himself that he can direct to any place consciously at will, he would be useless, merely a barnacle, and drain upon the Master's work and world. If the student has not, be not willing to, or does not discipline the personal self, so it is calm in the mind, peaceful and loving in feeling, and strong in body, is not material for the Ascended Master can use in more than human work than he does. When the student has not a strong, controlled, well-developed vehicle, he is unable to cooperate with the Ascended Master and thus do the work of a kind which is beyond that of the ordinary human experience. Were one of these perfect beings to take a student without such qualities into a field of work, he would be making the same mistake one does in building a machine or home if he constructs it of imperfect material. That kind of material naturally could not stand unusual strain under sudden need or prolonged service. Thus it would not be a part of either wisdom, love, nor mercy to subject anyone to experience for which he has neither the training nor is strong enough to bear. As the Ascended Masters are the asmi of the perfection, they naturally would not do anything except that which is just, loving, and wise. The attitude of one who wishes to work in conscious cooperation with the Ascended Host should not be, I wish I could go to them for instructions, but rather, I will do perfectly, discipline, and perfect myself, become such an expression of divine love, wisdom, and power that I can assist in their work. Then I will automatically be drawn unto them. I will love so constantly, so infinitely, so divinely, that the very intensity of my own light will open a way for them to accept me. My son, self-correction and control of the forces within, the use of the human conscious is not the work of the moment nor the path of ease, lethargy, self-gratification, for the sense riots within the average human being and he rebels furiously against the restraints of his lower nature, which is imperative if he is to govern these forces properly within himself, especially in his feelings, so they may be used and act only under the conscious dominion of his God mind. The saying that many are called but few are chosen is very true. All are constantly called, but few are awake enough to realize the ecstatic joy and perfection within the God self and to hear its voice in the light forever and forever calling everyone back to the Father's house. Every individual on earth is free each moment to arise and go unto the Father, his God self, if he will but turn his back upon the creation of the human senses and hold his attention on the only source in the universe from which peace, happiness, abundance, and perfection can come. There is a way for all to come into contact with ascended masters, and that is to think upon them, call upon them. They will answer every call with their own presence of love, but the motive for the call must be love of the one source, love of the light, love of perfection. If this be real, determined, and self-stead, the student will receive greater and greater light from the light knows its own and gives of itself unceasingly, unconditionally, every moment. Ask, and ye shall receive. Knock, and it shall be opened. Unto you seek, and ye shall find. Call unto the light, and the ascended masters will answer you, for they are the light of this world. Lotus served as a priestess in the temple of Mitla for more than 40 years with you and your son. By the combined efforts of the three, the various cities in the colonies were brought to a state of great perfection. You established industries and directed the agriculture until prosperity abounded in the land. It was revealed to the Inca ruler when he was to finish his earthly pilgrimage to the service in that civilization. It was then he called the three of you home to him. Others were appointed to take your place, and with blessings and love to your people you bade them farewell. On your arrival home, the king was much surprised to find none of you had aged during the long absence. Your youthful appearance was a result of training received in childhood, and still greater proof that his children had been divinely sent in answer to his prayer. Deep gratitude to the one mighty God for blessing him, his children, and people always filled his heart. At this point, Saint Germain described the Inca embodiments, living pictures, began to appear in the atmosphere before me, all in their original color and activity. They lasted for nearly 3 hours, and he revealed those ancient experiences as a living reality in Peru and Mitla. The Inca ruler called the 14 from the Golden City together in preparation for the most important event of his earthly pilgrimage. He knew the hours of passing was near, and the affairs of the empire had to be transferred into the controls of the elderly son, whom he was to appoint his successor at the banquet. The palace was famous for centuries as the most magnificent building of the period because the king had tremendous resources at his command throughout the entire region. He lived close to his God self at all times, and wealth untold flowed into his use. The interior of the palace was almost ornate, the private room of his royal family being decorated in pure gold, set with jewels and the symbols of the sun, used wherever possible as a constant reminder of the God self within. The banquet hall was set with 5 tables, carved jade, resting in white onyx pedestals, each seating 20 people, with the expectation of the royal table, at which was 16, these being the 14 from the Golden City, the king and Master Saint Germain, who was then known as Son Uriel. The chair of the king's table were made of gold, slightly canopied with gorgeous ostrich plumes of magnificent color. In the Inca chair, the plumes were a beautiful violet, in Saint Germain's an intense gold, the daughter's pink, the eldest son violet, but the lighter shades than the ruler, and thus in the chair of the younger son, white representing authority of the priesthood. The plumes in the chair of the rest of the 14 of the Golden City were of varying colors, beautiful beyond description, the color in each case representing the office and service that each occupant gave to the empire. Clothes of varying material, heavy embroidered, with threads of remarkable brilliance, covered the tops of the table. The entire palace was lighted by self-luminous crystal globes that Saint Germain gave to the Inca ruler when his instructions first began. The king wore a royal robe of golden metallic-like fabric with the marvelous jeweled breastplate representing the sun. Over this his robe of office made a rich purple fabric trimmed with magnificent ostrich plumes around the entire edge and deep collar. His crown was a band of diamond that held 3 violet plumes at the back. These 3 plumes in the inner life of the ruler symbolize the 3 activities of the Godhead, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, acting through man as love, wisdom, and power. The 2 sons were clothed in garments similar to their father, except long robes of state, each wearing a symbol of the great sun, formed by the breastplate of jewels. The crown of the elder son was set with emeralds, and the plumes at the back were violet like the king's, but of a lighter shade. The headdress of the other son was set with pearls. His plumes were white, another symbol of his office as priest. The king's daughter was robed in golden fabrics fine of gossamer silk, with an overdrape of opalescent material, dazzling to behold and change color with every movement of the body. She wore a jeweled girdle of diamonds and emeralds with its panel reaching nearly to the floor. On her head was a close-fitting clasp of woven material, around the neck a chain on which hung the symbol of the great sun, set in diamonds, rubies, and emeralds. Her sandals were of golden, also jeweled. Just as the king left his private chambers on the way to the banquet hall, a blazing light flashed through the rooms, and Saint Germain stood before us, looking like a god. The light about him was almost blinding in its brilliance, and we were a few seconds becoming accustomed to it. His beautiful golden hair, hung to his shoulders, was held in place by a band of blue diamonds around the forehead. His own intense radiance shone through the colors of his hair until it looked like sunlight. The piercing, sparkling violet of his eyes contrasted strongly against the skin that revealed the soft pink colors of youth and perfect health. His features were very regular, like those of ancient Greeks. He wore a robe of marvelous, dazzling white fabric, entirely different from anything in the modern world. It fitted the body slightly to the waist, around which was clasped a girdle of yellow diamonds and sapphires, with a panel that reached to his knees. On the 3rd finger of his left hand, a ring set with a gorgeous yellow diamond, and on the middle finger of his right, a sapphire almost as brilliant, both blazing tremendously because of his great radiation, as he just came from the Golden City. The king was surprised and overjoyed at his appearance, and making the sign of the heart, the head and the hand bowed low before him and offered the master his arm. They proceeded thus into the banquet hall. Here the table had been laid with entire service of gold, crystal, and jade. The children of the king soon entered, and they held their beloved master. They were almost overcome with joy. However, they did not forget the dignity of the occasion, making the divine sign he had taught them, bowed low before their father and distinguished guest. The signal was given, and all were seated. The king sat at the head of the table, Master Saint Germain at his right. Next to him his daughter. The elder son was placed at the left, and the younger son next, then the rest from the Golden City. At the close of the banquet, the ruler rose and gave complete attention. He stood silent for a moment and extended his hand to the beloved Saint Germain, introduced him to the guests. The master bowed graciously, and the king told them how the higher spiritual law had been taught to him and his children, and how the great blessings which had come to the land and its people were the result of the master's great love. He explained further that the banquet had been given for him to appoint his successor to the throne. He signaled to the elder son to rise and announced him as their future ruler. Removing the royal robe, he placed it upon his son's shoulders, and Saint Germain, raising his hand above him in blessing, said, I bless you, my son, in the name of the power of the one mighty God in man and governing the universe, whose supreme wisdom shall direct you, whose light shall illume you, whose love shall bless and unfold you, the lands and its people.